There's evil. And then there's Unicron. Imagine a planet, a thriving world with towering cities, civilizations stretching across continents, billions of lives going about their day, completely unaware that their doom is already upon them. The sky darkens, not from an eclipse, but from something far worse. The stars vanish one by one as an impossible shadow swallows the heavens. Then, the ground begins to shake, not from war, not from nature, but from the pull of something vast, something hungry. And then it begins. The planet's crust splinters as entire cities are lifted into the void. Skyscrapers twist and crumble. Oceans rise in walls of fire. And the screams of entire species are drowned out by the deafening roar of an all-consuming maw. There is no escape. There is no negotiation. There is only Unicron. He's not a conqueror. He's not a warlord. He's annihilation itself. A cosmic force that exists beyond morality, beyond desire. Unicron does not seek to rule. He seeks to end all things. His name is a whisper in the dark, a legend that should not be real. But when the skies burn, civilizations know their time is over. Where did this living apocalypse come from? How has he shaped Cybertronian history across time? And why does death even fail to stop him? This is the dark side of Transformers. Unicron, the endless hunger. Before time, before Cybertron, before existence as we know it, there were two, Primus and Unicron. They were not merely gods, they were concepts given form. The living embodiment of order and chaos. Primus, a being of creation and harmony, sought to bring balance to the universe, while Unicron embodied entropy, destruction, and the raw hunger of oblivion. They were eternal rivals, locked in conflict that shook the very fabric of existence itself. In the Marvel Comics continuity, their battle raged across the cosmos. Unicron did not simply seek to rule. He sought to end all things, consuming galaxies and collapsing reality itself. He was not a conqueror. He was a cosmic predator, an all-devouring hunger that knew no limits. Primus, desperate to stop him, waged war across countless realities. In an act of strategic sacrifice, Primus tricked Unicron into a final confrontation. But instead of defeating his foe outright, Primus sealed them both within metallic forms. Primus became the world that would give rise to the Transformers, while Unicron, ever the parasite, was trapped within a barren celestial husk, forced to drift in silence. But Unicron is not a being that can be contained forever. The G1 cartoon offered a different origin. Here, Unicron was not an eternal being, but at the creation of the ancient alien scientist Primicron. A mechanical god designed to be the ultimate weapon, Unicron betrayed his creator and rampaged across the stars, consuming entire civilizations. His hunger was not born from cosmic balance. It was the madness of a machine that had outgrown its purpose. No matter how many times the Transformers fought back, Unicron would return, because Unicron was not just a destroyer, he was the end. But he does not only destroy, he corrupts. When force is not enough, he enslaves minds, twists souls, and bends even the greatest warriors to his will. And his greatest pawn, Megatron. Unicron does not simply destroy, he corrupts. When brute force is unnecessary, he uses something far more insidious: manipulation, deceit, and enslavement. He does not merely kill his enemies, he bends them to his will, warping their identities until they're no longer their own. And no servant embodies this more than Megatron. In the 1986 Transformers the movie, Megatron, once the mighty leader of the Decepticons, was broken. Defeated by Optimus Prime, cast into space by Starscream, he drifted helplessly through the void, awaiting death. But death would not come for him. Instead, only a voice. Unicron spoke into Megatron's mind, his voice not demanding, but offering. He did not force Megatron's servitude. He presented it as a choice: serve him and be reborn, refuse him and perish into the dark, cold abyss. Megatron, ever the survivor, bowed. In a blinding display of power, Unicron tore Megatron apart and reforged him, transforming the once mortal warlord into Galvatron, a being of unparalleled strength, raw power, and absolute servitude. Where Megatron had been a leader, Galvatron was a puppet. His thoughts were no longer his own. The fire that had once driven him was chained to Unicron's will. Unicron did not trust Galvatron's loyalty, and so he shackled him with pain. The moment Galvatron showed even the slightest hint of defiance, Unicron sent unimaginable agony through his body, reducing him to a screaming, powerless wretch. The message was clear. Galvatron did not belong to himself. He belonged to Unicron. Even as Galvatron raged, he was not a conqueror anymore. He was a tool, a weapon wielded by the Chaos Bringer himself. The horrifying cycle of destruction, corruption, and rebirth will continue through different continuities, as Megatron's ambitions would lead him time and time again into Unicron's clutches. The aligned continuity would take the corruption even further. In Transformers Prime, Unicron did not merely rebuild Megatron's body, he invaded his mind. Unicron's presence was like a virus, infecting Megatron's consciousness, twisting his thoughts, making him question his very identity. Unlike previous versions, this was not mere mind control. It was psychological warfare. Megatron, a warlord who prided himself on his strength, found himself enslaved not by chains, but by whispers in the dark. His mind was no longer his own, his actions tainted by Unicron's influence. Every choice, every battle, every ambition, all led back to the Chaosbringer. Unicron's power was absolute. The great Decepticon leader led his life believing he was always in control, that he dictated his own fate. In the end, he was just another piece on Unicron's board, and when Unicron no longer had use for him, he cast him aside. Unicron was terrifying in the G1 cartoon. The Marvel Comics continuity made him something much worse. Here, he was more than a planet eater. He was a god, a force of destruction that transcended dimensions. He didn't just consume planets, he consumed realities. Entire timelines fell before him. Dimensions collapsed in his wake. Even when Primus summoned all Transformers to stand against him, they were barely enough. Only by channeling the life force of every Cybertronian could Unicron to be defeated. But even that was not enough to kill him, because Unicron never truly dies. In most continuities, Unicron is an ancient force of destruction, an ever-present threat lingering on the edge of existence. But in IDW's Transformers continuity, Unicron was not an ancient god. He was created as a means to end Cybertron by a bitter scientist from the planet Antilla, and then manipulated by Shockwave in a plan millions of years in the making. Unlike previous incarnations, this Unicron was not merely a force of destruction. He was a weapon engineered to destroy Cybertronian history itself. Unicron's arrival in the IDW continuity did not mark the beginning of a war. It was a massacre. Entire planets were erased in moments. Civilization after civilization vanished, not because they had fought and lost, but because they had never even had a chance to fight back. Unicron's approach was like a force of nature, inevitable, inescapable. There was no diplomacy, no negotiation. When he arrived, the countdown to oblivion had already begun. The first casualties were the colony worlds, leaving nothing behind but cosmic debris and shattered remnants of life. It wasn't just the destruction of planets. It was the destruction of hope itself. Even Optimus Prime, the last hope of Cybertron, could only watch as the galaxy burned around him. When Unicron had finally reached Cybertron, it was already over. Optimus Prime, knowing there was no conventional way to defeat Unicron, made the ultimate sacrifice. The cost? Optimus Prime was lost forever. The universe had survived, but only barely. The war was over, but it was not a victory. Unicron was not a villain that could be defeated, only delayed, and his name would never be forgotten. In most universes, Unicron is an external threat, a cosmic horror drifting through space, devouring everything in his path. But in Transformers Prime, he was something far worse. Because here, Unicron was not just a distant destroyer, he was Earth itself. Long ago, Primus and Unicron waged their eternal war, just as in other continuities. But in this timeline, Primus emerged victorious. Unable to destroy Unicron outright, Primus shattered his body, breaking apart piece by piece. But these fragments did not simply vanish into the void. They became Earth. Every continent, every mountain, every ocean. All of it was Unicron's remains. He was not sealed in slumber beneath Cybertron's surface. He was the very foundation of the planet the Autobots and Decepticons now waged war upon. And though his body was dormant, his dark spark still pulsed deep into the planet's core. For eons, Unicron was silent, but destruction awakens more destruction. When the Autobot and Decepticon war reached a critical turning point, when Megatron's thirst for conquest reached beyond Cybertron and onto Earth, Unicron stirred. The very ground trembled as his presence seeped through the planet, and an ancient terror long thought defeated began to awaken. Unicron did not need to attack Earth. He was already beneath the Autobots' feet. But Unicron did not need to strike with brute force. He was far more insidious. Rather than manifesting in a physical form, he reached into Megatron's mind, corrupting him from within, twisting his thoughts, warping his will. But in Unicron's eyes, Megatron's ambition, his rage, his thirst for power, made him the perfect vessel. At first, Megatron believed he could wield Unicron's power as a weapon, bending the Chaosbringer to his own ends. But he was wrong. Unicron does not grant power, he consumes it. Megatron, a warlord who had always prided himself on his strength, found himself helpless. His thoughts were no longer his own, his body a mere extension of Unicron's will. Every action he took, every command he gave, it was not Megatron speaking, it was Unicron. Even Starscream, no stranger to betrayal, saw what was happening and recoiled in horror. He had seen Megatron at his most ruthless, at his most merciless. But this was something far different. This was not Megatron anymore. This was something far worse. A Decepticon warlord with Unicron's mind was more terrifying than Unicron himself. But even in darkness, there was resistance. Megatron, despite everything, was still a warrior. He fought Unicron's control, clawing back his identity inch by inch, refusing to be reduced to a mindless puppet. But Unicron was far from finished. Unicron was not just the destroyer of life. He had the ability to reanimate it. In a twisted mockery of Primus's creation of the Transformers, Unicron raised the long-extinct Predacons from the ashes. But these were not mere warriors. These were dragons, reborn with Unicron's dark essence. These were not living beings, they were monsters. Soulless revenants bound to his will. The skies of Cybertron burned as the undead Predacons ravaged everything in their path. Even the mightiest Autobots and Decepticons were powerless against the nightmare. Unicron had found a way to wage war without needing a body, but there was one thing he hadn't counted on: Optimus Prime. The battle was not one of weapons, but of will. Optimus Prime, the champion of Primus, against Unicron, the living apocalypse. And as Optimus Prime sacrificed his spark, Unicron's grip on Earth and Cybertron was shattered. The Predacons fell, the planet stilled, the storm of chaos faded. For the second time, Unicron was sealed away, perhaps for good, but if history has taught us anything, Unicron never truly dies. He only waits. In Transformers Armada, Unicron was not an active force in the beginning. His presence loomed over galaxies like a shadow, influencing events from behind the scenes, but his true power was hidden until the war over the Minicons began. The Minicons, seemingly harmless, were actually key components in Unicron's revival, living conduits of energy that could restore his dormant form. Every battle between the Autobots and Decepticons over these tiny beings unknowingly fed into Unicron's awakening. As the war escalated, Megatron's ambitions played directly into Unicron's hands. The Decepticon leader, obsessed with conquest, never questioned the sudden surge of power granted by the Minicons. But Optimus Prime and his allies uncovered the truth. Unicron was the true architect of their war. By the time the two factions had realized what happened, it was too late. Unicron had awakened. In a moment of cosmic horror, his planet-sized form emerged from the void, revealing himself as the ultimate manipulator, the force behind all their suffering. The final battle in Armada was not of the Autobots versus the Decepticons, it was the fate of the universe versus Unicron. In a rare moment of unity, Optimus Prime and Megatron joined forces to stop the Chaos Bringer. Megatron, unwilling to be anyone's pawn, sacrificed himself, launching himself into Unicron's core in a desperate attempt to end the threat once and for all. It seemed like the battle was over, but Unicron never truly dies. Unicron's destruction in Armada was only a setback. His physical body was shattered, but his essence lingered, a malevolent influence that refused to fade. Transformers Energon revealed that Unicron's spark still pulsed in the void, even in his weakened state. He was still the most dangerous being in the universe. Alpha Quintesson, an ancient manipulator, sought to use Unicron's power for his own end, believing he could control the Chaos Bringer. But Unicron has no allies, only tools. Through deception and raw hunger, Unicron began to reconstructing his body, feeding on Cybertronian energy. The Autobots fought desperately, but Unicron's hunger is endless. Every attempt to destroy him was futile. It was only through Optimus Prime wielding the power of Primus himself that Unicron was stopped. But even then he was not destroyed. His body was shattered, but his essence remained, and that is the true horror of Unicron. Even when you break his body, his influence will not fade. By the time of Transformers Cybertron, Unicron's body was completely destroyed. His presence still loomed over the universe. Though Unicron itself did not return in Cybertron, his past actions had already broken the fabric of the universe. Even though the Autobots emerged victorious, the galaxy would always bear the scars of Unicron's existence. Because Unicron does not just destroy, he leaves the universe in a state where it can never fully recover. For decades, Unicron loomed over the Transformers mythos as an entity of cosmic horror, appearing across comics, animated series, and even a brief glimpse in Transformers The Last Knight. But in 2023, he's made his full return in Transformers Rise of the Beast, revealing himself as a galactic-level threat once more. However, this Unicron was not simply a force of destruction. He manipulated events from the shadows across the universe. In Rise of the Beast, Unicron is as terrifying as ever, his monstrous, world-consuming form looming over the cosmos. Rather than mindlessly devouring planets, he's a calculated strategist, ruling through fear and subjugation, ensuring that civilizations fall before they even realize the danger. Unlike previous iterations, this version is fully aware of multiversal conflicts, knowing that the Autobots and Maximals are obstacles in his way. And so, rather than ascending upon Earth himself, he sends his most ruthless servants, Scourge and his Terrorcons. Scourge, a twisted, sadistic hunter, operates as Unicron's executioner. The Terrorcons are not mere lackeys. They are heralds of extinction, devoted entirely to Unicron's cause. Their mission is simple: retrieve the Transwarp Key, a device capable of opening rifts in space-time. With it, Unicron could break free of his confinement and consume Earth. Nothing would stop him from devouring the entire galaxy. Before coming to Earth, Unicron had already laid waste to countless worlds. One of those worlds belonged to the Maximals. They knew the truth, Unicron was inevitable. No army could stop him, no defense was strong enough, but Unicron's reach is infinite. Scourge led an assault on the Maximals, and forcing Optimus Primal and his warriors into hiding. They carried the last hope of resistance, a way to keep Unicron trapped, unable to spread his devastation. As Scourge and the Terrorcons descended upon Earth, Unicron looms in the background, watching, waiting for his time to strike. Every moment of the battle is a race against time, because unlike in previous iterations, Unicron is not coming, he is already here. His monstrous form cracks the sky, a harbinger of what's to come if the Autobots fail. Optimus Prime, Noah Diaz, and the Maximals stand as the last line of defense, knowing that even their combined strength is nothing compared to the Chaos Bringer himself. But they don't need to defeat Unicron, they just need to cut him off. And so, through a desperate gambit, the Transwarp Key is destroyed, severing Unicron's connection to Earth. For now, he is cast back into the void. Even in his retreat, his hunger remains. His final words are not of rage, but of certainty, because Unicron does not fail. He waits, and when he returns, there is no escape. Unicron is not just a villain, he's an inevitability. He does not seek power, he erases it. He does not rule, he consumes. He's not a tyrant to be overthrown, he's not a monster to be slain. He is entropy given form. For every time he's been defeated, he has returned. The Transformers' greatest heroes, Optimus Prime, Rodimus Prime, the 13 Primes, all have tried to stop him, but Unicron never truly dies. He merely slumbers, waiting for the moment the universe lets its guard down. So the real question is whether Unicron can be stopped. It's what happens when he wins. What would happen if Unicron's hunger was never halted? No Autobots, no Decepticons, no Cybertron, no Earth, no life, no history, no memories, nothing. Only silence, only darkness, only Unicron. Do you think Unicron can ever truly be stopped? Or is his return only a matter of time? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed deep dives in Transformers lore, subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay handsome.